Let's talk about what makes an MBA essay pack a punch. First, let me tell you what candidates think this means. They think that punch comes from drama or maybe clever wordplay. So, MBA essays, even when you only have 250 precious words to say something, end up overflowing with descriptions of a scene. And because let's face it, great writing does not come easily, it ends up looking mostly melodramatic. The tension in the conference room was palpable. I knew the team's entire future was on the line. My sister's stifled sobs compelled me to action. You may ask, but what's the problem with these lines? They sound pretty great to me, but here's the thing. These lines want to sound cinematic, but what they really signal is that the writer doesn't trust the story to hold up on its own. They're reaching for emotion instead of building insight. They're focused on how it sounds, not what it means. And the AdComs can tell. They've read thousands of essays and they can spot when someone is leading with theatrics instead of thought. So let me save you a lot of time and effort. The only thing that makes an MBA essay pack a real punch, the kind that moves your file to the invite to interview pile, is substance. But what is substance, you might ask? It's not just a fair question, it's an important one. Substance comes from having spent the time to examine and understand your key experiences, both personal and professional, and knowing which ones were most important and why. It's about what you did, but also what you noticed that others didn't, and what tension you were navigating, what real risks you took, what decisions you wrestled with, and how all of these shaped your choices and your behavior since. That's where substance lives. Not in the fact that you presented to senior leadership, but in what you learned about persuading people who weren't convinced by logic alone. And not in simply launching a nonprofit, but in the moment when you realized that your carefully built plan wouldn't work and had to figure out how to move forward anyway. Now, here's where it gets even better. Once you have that level of substance, authenticity becomes almost inevitable because when you know exactly what the moment meant to you, you stop trying to sound a certain way. You just explain what happened, what mattered, and what changed. The voice becomes yours, not the voice from an MBA essay template, and definitely not the voice of an AI bot that has been cleverly prompted to do something gimmicky like optimize for what the outcome wants to hear or dial up the vulnerability for my Stanford essays. But let's be clear about one more thing. Substance doesn't mean talk about everything important that's ever happened to you. Substance still requires judgment. When you engage in deep, sincere self reflection in your MBA application process, there will be many experiences in your life that are worth writing about, but not all of them belong in your MBA application. So, what makes the difference? It's your judgment. Judgment is the most underrated component of great MBA essays. It's also the one thing that AI, which as a power user I am a huge fan of, hasn't mastered yet. But judgment is what matters most to the actual decision makers, the AdComs, because your essay isn't just telling a story, it's showing what you thought was worth telling. What did you choose to spotlight? What did you leave out? And what do these choices reveal about how you understand your own growth, your goals, and your role in a community? Every essay is a test of judgment. The right story, told in the right amount of depth, in a voice that sounds like yours, that's what punches through the noise. And that's what we'll unpack next. We'll talk about how to weave both substance and judgment into essays that leave the reader with a strong sense of who you are and what you'll be like as a member of their MBA community. So, if you're wondering, how do I know which story is the right one? Stay tuned and hit subscribe, MBA Hopeful, because next week I'll walk you through that in the next video. I'll see you there.